You do not want to miss this episode. We're going to dig into the 12 key lessons from the classic Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Control and Compound. I am Darren Mitchell, and joining me as always, Christina White. Christina, how you doing today?
Hey, Darren, I am doing great. I'm having an awesome day. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. We talked about this book for a while, about doing a podcast on it because it's amazing how many of our clients and how many of our successful, wealthy clients tell us this book was what changed their lives or got them started on this journey to wealth. So I'm excited for today's podcast.
Yeah, me too. But before we jump in, I just want to remind everybody, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please make sure you subscribe and leave that 5-star review. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and hit that bell button so you always know when new content is coming out. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Control and Compound on Instagram and TikTok.
Cool. Okay. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. You probably heard of the book. You may or may not have read it, but it's one of those books that I like to go back and read again and again and again. Like I'll go years without reading it. Then it's like, oh, I should read that again because the lessons are fantastic. And it's really more than just a book. It's a financial education on philosophy and like how to become rich. So the book came out in 1997 and over 32 million copies sold. So just about every country you can think of, 32 million copies sold, even more than Be the Bank copies sold. So pretty impressive book. But Christina, for you, like what makes this book stand out as such a, like, almost every real estate entrepreneur you talk to has read this book. What makes this one stand out?
So I think I just want to start by, it's not, a lot of people will think because, like you said, real estate investors and whatnot say this is how they got their start, but it's not about real estate investing, and it's not even really about finance. It's more so the mindset around finance, right? Which is what I think makes it stand out. That mindset, shifting it. So in the book, it really follows Robert Kiyosaki, the author's childhood, growing up, and what he learned from his rich dad, who's actually his friend Mike's father, and his biological father, who is a teacher. So Mike is a business owner, his father is a teacher, and he kind of goes through the lessons that he learns from each of them, and he applies real life scenarios, which I think is it really hits home with a lot of people as you're reading it. So it's shifting your mindset. And like, I think one of the biggest key takeaways is it's not about how much money you make. It's about what you do with your money, right? So he spends a lot of time on financial education, and we're so big on financial education, right? Like learning, shifting your mindset from that conventional way of thinking when it comes to finances. And we talk about that all the time, right? If you want to be wealthy, you do what wealthy people do. And this is what he does with this book. He's teaching wealthy people how to be wealthy. He's sharing what he learned from following the footsteps of the rich dad in this scenario, which I think it's pretty cool. But it's all about mindset. It's not about real estate investing. It's in there, but like it's all about the mindset of the wealthy is what I think about it.
Yeah, and it's one of those books that really, it was pivotal, I think, in financial literacy. Like there's a couple books like this one, then in Canada, we've got The Millionaire Next Door. Like some of these books were just pivotal in people started saying, oh, wait a minute, I want to learn more about finances. I want to learn about financial literacy. I want to learn how to get ahead, and I want to learn how to be an entrepreneur. And it really created this learning movement instead of, go work your 9 to 5, rely on other financial experts to tell you what you should be doing. So it was really a spark for a lot of people to go on that entrepreneur or real estate investing path. Now, again, you can go online and there's all going to be all kinds of critics of it. But it's kind of like what we do, Christina. This book isn't for everybody, okay? This book is really designed for someone that wants to take control of their money and become wealthy, right? And they want to learn the methods of the wealthy. And there's lots of people out there that say, you know what, I want to work my 9 to 5 job and I just want to put, an extra $100 in my RSP and have a pension and be basically that poor dad in the book. That's fine. Like that you have a great life. That's wonderful. But this book is kind of like more like what we do. We're talking to the people that want to be wealthy, the people that are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs or real estate investors or want to be real estate investors. So I think it's a great book and I think it's a must read. for anyone that is an entrepreneur or real estate investor or wants to learn about how to become one. Even if you're a seasoned investor or just starting out in your financial journey, doesn't matter. You should read the book. It could be like a major transformation in your life. And worst case scenario, you're going to learn a ton. But let's dig into sort of, we kind of narrowed it down to 12 lessons, and we could have probably had 30 lessons. But let's narrow it down, Christina, to sort of the 12 key lessons we learned from the book. And we'll talk about each one of those and go from there.
Yeah. So the first one that I want to talk about is finding models for wealth. So this is number one. And he says wealth is learned, right? It's not a given. You don't wake up one day and you know how to become wealthy. You have to learn how to become wealthy. And what he decided to do was model after the rich dad, his friend Mike's father, versus his father, who kind of did it that way of thinking like you just talked about, where it's, work your 9 to 5, put your money in your RSP and all that jazz. And so he could have modeled himself after his father, or he could model himself after rich dad, right? Which is what he decided to do. So he followed the patterns and what his rich dad taught him and modeled after him. It kind of goes back to the old saying, like, your parents always said you are who you hang out with. That's what he's telling us here. Like, who you hang out with, who you associate with, who you learn from, that's going to shape your financial future. So if you spend all of your time with entrepreneurs, you spend your time with real estate investors, that's how, you spend your off time and your working time. Well, you're going to learn from them and you're going to model after them. And that is what's going to make you wealthy long term. You have to take the time to learn it. So that was a big takeaway for me, which I think, a lot of us practice every day. But my mom did tell me lots, you are who you hang out with in high school. She was right. So you were right, Mom. The second one I have here that I really love when he said this, it's you're broke, not poor. And this is huge. This is all about that mind shift that we talk about in this book. And he says, broke is temporary. So, broke is a temporary place in time where you might not have the cash in hand, but poor is a state of mind. So it's all in changing your mind shift to know that, you're working towards being wealthy. This is a temporary state that we're in being broke. And he talks about all of his pitfalls and stuff too. We've all been there where we've not succeeded exactly how we wanted to, but you don't stay there. You keep moving forward and you keep learning and you keep making yourself better. And then you get yourself out of that state of mind, out of that situation of broke, and you're out of it. You're poor is that state of mind. So you don't want to be in that state of mind. Broke's okay. Poor, you don't want to be there.
Yeah, I love that too. I was like looking back, through my working career, and I was like, turns out I wasn't poor. I was just broke because I always thought I could do more, but you and I both have shared some of our stories of in our early years there wasn't a lot of money. I remember a lot of lean times, but invested in ourselves and started a business, all that cool stuff. I really like too. The third thing we want to talk about is the lesson is financial freedom, and he really talks about how the rich don't work for money, poor and middle class work for money, but rich have money work for them, and that's really this passive income idea where true financial freedom is when your passive income, and that's income that you're not really working for, right? Your money, your investments are earning that money when your passive income is greater than your expenses. Okay, so that's the starting point for financial freedom. If you have 10 grand a month of expenses, once you have your money making you 10 grand a month or your investments making you 10 grand a month, that's financial freedom. I think the safety net is, a nice goal is 2 times your monthly income or 2 times your monthly expenses as income. Then you're going to have lots of money, and you're going to have some flexibility in there, and then you can maybe have a incredible life. But passive income is the big thing there. And then the next lesson, don't get caught up in the rat race. I love this because, Christina, we talk about this all the time. It's people start making more money and their expenses go right hand in hand with their increase in more money, fancier cars, nicer homes, and then they're not saving money. They're not putting money away to get that money working for them. They're just working for more things. And Christina, I've shared this with you before, but years ago when I was a financial advisor, we had an office with 3 or 4 advisors, and we used to joke how we could tell the person coming in to see one of the other advisors whether they had money or not. Because if a person came in a fancy suit and a fancy car, we're like, that's probably like, some kind of doctor that owes $1 zillion, doesn't have a lot of money, maybe on marriage 2 or 3, but they got a nice car, and a nice house, and nice suits. And then a guy would come in jeans, and you're like, oh, that guy's got money. He's probably a business owner. Then in the summertime, a guy comes in shorts. You're like, this guy's confident. He's probably got a boatload of money. So we were always trying to judge people. Now, again, didn't always work out, but it's amazing how many people perceive people that have money. And then, as financial advisors, we really know who has money. And it's like the millionaire next door. The people that have money are the people that started a business, started saving money and not spending everything they were making, didn't drive the fancy cars. We've got clients worth millions and millions of dollars that are driving, 12-year-old half-ton trucks, because they don't need to spend money on that. They're spending their money on assets that's going to produce income for them for the rest of their lives, so they're not going to be forced to work. So don't get caught up in the rat race. When you start making more money, don't increase your expenses to match that. Use that as an opportunity to save more money.
Absolutely. The next one I have here is super important. Work to learn, don't work for money. And this one's all around, the importance of financial literacy and your financial IQ. So he is all about financial literacy, learning, and he knocks the schools a bit, which I believe. I also follow this judgment. It's the schools are going to teach you, high school is going to teach you how to work a 9 to 5, right? School, and college, some degrees as well, are going to teach you how to work a 9 to 5. What you need to focus on is your financial IQ. So he actually says that there's 4 things that you need to study in order to be successful and wealthy. Number 1 is accounting. Number 2 is investing. Number 3 is understanding the markets. So, supply and demand. And number 4 is law. So taxes and law. So he's very passionate about, where you spend your time learning and how you learn. It's funny because I tell my son all the time, I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll get your degree. No problem. Your business degree. That is the degree that I will pay for my child. And he knows it. He knows that he's going to school for business. I said, you can be anything you want after that, right? You want to be a welder. You want to run a bakery. It doesn't matter. Do what you want. You want to be a baker, do what you want. But to get that business degree and understand those 4 things first is crucial, because then you can do whatever you want. You can run that business, right? So taking the time to do different jobs, learn different things, get exposure to different things, that's going to increase your financial IQ, which is so important, right? And life learnings too, and just being out there and taking different jobs and learning different things, increasing that financial IQ. So that one I think was really important. The next one is super. If you've read this book, everybody knows about the quadrants, right? So the mindset shift, EBSI, those 4 quadrants that he brings up, and where you want to sit. If you want to be wealthy, which quadrant do you need in order to be wealthy? So the 4 quadrants are employee. So you can be an employee. You can work that 9 to 5. You can be a business owner, where you have individuals working under you, working for you. Or you can be self-employed. So that's, as a self-employed person, you're really just trading in the job. You're trading your time for money. So you're still working, right? And then the last one's investor. And what he says is that if you really want to be wealthy, you need to be in quadrant B or I. So you need to be the business owner and you need to be the investor. And that is how you're truly going to become wealthy, right? Another little thing he says in there is mind your own business. So mind your own business. So your profession is not actually your business. Your business is a completely different thing. And he mentions Ray Kroc and McDonald's, and how someone asked him, well, are you in the business of burgers? He's not in the business of burgers. McDonald's is actually in the business of real estate, right? They own some of the most real estate in the entire world. The prime real estate is McDonald's. So he is not in the business of burgers. He's in the business of real estate. And you have to know what your business is in order to be successful. And profession doesn't automatically equal business, right? So focus on your business and get yourself in those quadrants of business or investor to truly become wealthy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love both those points, Christina. The invest or learn 4 things: the accounting, investing, understanding the stock markets, and law. Those are things, I think I've picked up in the last 25 years, and I've taken courses and stuff. But if I could go back into my 20s, I would have, and I have an MBA and I learned all, some of that stuff, but I didn't really learn it from a business or more from an entrepreneur standpoint. And you don't, necessarily have to do your MBA to learn this stuff. Like, you can take a 2-3 day course on how to read financial statements. And I'd encourage every business owner, like, you need to know what an income statement is and what a balance sheet is. And you need to understand the fundamentals of how tax works. You need to understand the fundamentals of law with, do you need an opco, a holdco, a family trust? How does that work? You don't need to be an expert on it, but you need to have a fundamental understanding of that, and then you can seek out experts to help you. But I love that education part. And then, from the mind shift, like when you're an entrepreneur, like a true business is a self-managing company. If the business doesn't exist without the owner there, it's not really a desirable business to be purchased, because, well, if the owner's not there, and the owner makes 90% of the revenue, well, without the owner, you don't really have a business. So if you really want a business, like Robert Kiyosaki says, you gotta have the goal of a self-managing business. Now, most businesses aren't self-managing, but they can be more self-managing than they are today, or mostly self-managing. Okay, so if we jump on to the next two, assets versus liabilities, and we see this all the time too. Rich people buy assets, poor people buy liabilities, right? Because I go back to that fancy car and fancy homes and stuff. That's what people that are stuck in the rat race, poor people, middle class people, they're not really trying to save money and to get assets. They're trying to make money so they can buy more liabilities, like a bigger home, a fancier car, fancier vacations, trips, and all that stuff. Where he says the focus should be on putting money in real assets. And an asset would be something that produces an income. A liability takes money away from you. So something that produces an income, your stocks, your bonds, real estate, royalties from properties, anything else that's you put money in and you get money back. So actual hard assets. So that's assets versus liabilities. Rich people want to focus on assets. And then this one is near and dear to our heart, Christina, number 8. The power of uninterrupted compounding. And I think we probably haven't gone through a podcast or a first meeting or second meeting where we haven't talked about the power of compounding. It's in the name of our business, control and compound. And the key word here is uninterrupted. And uninterrupted compounding, the wealthy have this figured out. The only way you're going to have uninterrupted compounding is if you can avoid those 4 wealth destroyers: taxes, fees, volatility, and spending. So you want to get on that compound interest curve as early as you can in life, and you want to stay on it as long as you can. And he doesn't mention it in the book, but infinite banking or high cash value life insurance policies is a great way to do that. So that one hit home a lot too.
Yeah, they were great. The assets versus liabilities is a huge mind shift in knowing that, right? And we talk about that with clients all the time when we're talking about using our policies to go out there and use it for your and asset and invest in other opportunities. Invest in your assets, right? Liabilities aren't as good when you're taking out those policy loans and stuff. You want to invest in those assets versus liabilities. So I love that, and obviously I love uninterrupted compounding. It's one of my favorites here. So. Next one that we have here is he goes into the history of taxes and corporations and how you should understand that. You should understand how taxes work, just like we talked about how corporations and how taxes work. And you need a little bit of mind shift when you do that. So he says that Robin Hood was a crook. So I don't know if Robin Hood was this is his, I think he grabs your attention when he says that, is what he's trying to do here. Because Poor Dad in the book would say that Robin Hood was a hero, right? He stole from the rich to give to the poor. He brought, he got rid of those inequalities amongst the people, and he really fixed the problem, which we know that doesn't actually fix the problem in real life. Redistributing the wealth that hasn't worked out. It hasn't played out, which Rich Dad knows in this situation. So Rich Dad, on the other hand, he challenges the perspective, right? And he says that, it's probably more beneficial for individuals to learn how to create the wealth and financial success rather than relying on redistribution, right? This goes back to the old saying, like, you lead a horse to water and they'll drink, or, you get there, that old saying, right? So it's the same thing. You want to teach people how to be able to become wealthy versus the redistribution. So he says that, that's one, it's a change in mindset. And then he says you have to take the time to understand the tax code, which I think is huge. I spend a lot of time learning about taxes. It's crazy that I enjoy it as much as I do, but I enjoy learning about taxes with businesses mostly to be able to reduce the taxes. That's why I want to learn about it, which is what he says. You want to figure out ways for legal deductions and he says loopholes in the book, but legal ways to be able to, get those taxes down and lessen your tax burden, which we talk about all the time. Tax, like you said, number one wealth destroyer, you want to get rid of it. Well, you can't get rid of it without learning the strategies to get rid of it. And the only way to do that is to understand the tax code and the legal code. He also talks a lot about corporations, and we know this. Corporations can be very, very tax efficient. So using a corporation properly can bring down those tax burdens. And you hear from people all the time, those rich people, they don't pay anything in their businesses. It's all a write-off and everything else. Well, they can sit down and read the book too, right? Like they can sit down, they can learn what they have at their fingertips to be able to use to lessen their tax. You got to stop relying on other people and following that herd and learning it for yourself and learning, the different tips to become wealthy. It's not just going to happen for you. You've got to take the time to learn it and kind of apply it in real life as well.
Cool. And then we're on number 11 now, Christina.
Sorry, no, I missed one. I have one more. I got carried away with that one. It was a good one. But this one's a good one too. So this one's just a short one, but I really like it. So the rich invent money. So do they invent money? No, but they always are on the lookout for opportunities. So they're always looking for opportunities. They're always ready for opportunities. They have that cash on hand, and being ready actually it creates opportunities finding you. Right? If you've got that cash on hand, people are going to find you to show you the opportunities. And we talk about that all the time, being in control of your money, having access to cash so you can go out and you can take advantage of opportunities. And he says the exact same thing. He said, a lot of people, and well, he would have wrote this book long before it, but in 2008, when everybody was losing money, the people that had money and were in control and knew how these things worked, they knew about supply and demand, they studied these things, they studied the markets. Well, they had cash on hand and they made a ton of money. So there was a lot of wealthy individuals that came out of 2008. And that's because they know how to invent money, and their eyes are always open for opportunities. And you see people out this all the time. I have chats with people and they're like, well, do you see this opportunity? Do you see this? Like they can drive down the road and in the book, he goes for a jog and he can pick out the opportunities on a street going for a jog. And that's the way that you have to think. That's the mindset. Everything is an opportunity. Keep your eyes, ears open and be ready for it. Because if you're not ready for it, that opportunity is going to pass you by. So set yourself up for success that way.
Yeah, I think like literally 2008 is a perfect case study for this book. I mean, if you follow the advice of this book and you were in control of your money and you had money, and then when an opportunity came along, we're going to get into the number 11 here, overcoming obstacles and taking calculated risks. Well, in 2008, there was a lot of wealthy people that had access to money that took calculated risks that made zillions of dollars, because in every crisis there's opportunity. So I look at overcoming obstacles and taking calculated risks like there's no such thing as failure in business. Well, I mean, you can go bankrupt and fail and stuff, but every time you make a decision in business to do something, you learn. And we've talked before, Christina, about all the things we thought we could do starting out, with regards to ads and online stuff. And then we quickly realized we didn't fail on that. It wasn't successful, but we learned that we didn't know how to do it, and we had to find that the who to do it. And I think there's so many people that overanalyze things and they don't take action. And I love the, fire, ready, aim, because especially young people starting out, just don't just follow your passion stuff. Find something that you're interested in and just spend time going all in on that. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? You would have learned so much that the next thing you go all in on, you'll have that much greater chance of success from what you learned by taking a calculated risk and working hard and overcoming those obstacles. And I'll share one story. When I first started my own financial planning firm, I was at a nice big corporate job, and I was analyzing it for months about should I give up the security of the job? And, I had 2 little kids at the time, and we had lunch with their neighbors. And I remember my neighbor's dad was there, Don Baker. And he goes, I hear you're thinking of starting your own business. I'm like, yeah, Don, I've been analyzing it. He goes, are you good at what you do now? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, why don't you go start your business? If it doesn't work, go back to do what you're doing now. And I was like, okay. I was like, I think I should analyze it a little more. Then I was like, for the next 2 days, I was like, son of a gun. Like, he's all right, I'm starting my own business. And then, hey, honey, guess what? My corporate income's going to zero, and I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And again, all worked out. It was fantastic. Not that there were twists and turns along the way. So overcoming obstacles, taking calculated risks. I love that. And then number 12, pay yourself first. You got to save money on an ongoing basis. That's just common sense, but it is one of the most overlooked things that people just don't incorporate in their financial plan. They're worried about whether their $5,000 or $10,000 RSP is going to do whatever return, when they should be focused on how can I increase the amount of money that I'm saving each month or each year. And to do that, it's got to be systematic. And for me, I know once I started saving into these high cash value whole life plans where I knew I had access to it freed up my mindset to allow me to save more. Before, I would save money in short term in cash, long term in an RSP. So I was hesitant to kind of save money, and just I ended up taking inaction and spending money. But once I started doing this infinite banking concept, I was like, oh, well, I can put all this money into my high cash value life insurance policy. But if I need it next quarter for something, I know I have access to it. So it gave me the freedom to pay myself first and pay myself more. So that's lesson number 12. Pay yourself first.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that one too,
Sure.
because I also think that it's like probably one of the most important ones here. If you don't pay yourself, and I tell people that all the time, if you don't pay yourself first, there'll be nothing left. Like, you will spend it if you do not put that away when that paycheck. And this comes in for business owners, but regular people. Like, you take your paycheck, the first thing that you do is you take it and you pay yourself first, or there will not be anything left afterwards. Systematic savings is huge. The other thing that I thought was that I liked about this, and I think he's right. He's like, pay it, like, even, well, someone says, well, what if I can't pay my mortgage or I can't pay my tax bill? I don't care. Pay yourself first, because what that's going to do is it's going to create the need to go out there and hustle, right? If you have to come up with that money, if you have to come up with savings, you're not going to hustle as hard. But if it means you have to, make that mortgage payment, yeah, you're probably going to go out there and you're going to find a creative way to go, to make that money. And it puts you in the position where, that uncomfortable position where you have to work a bit harder. And being in an uncomfortable position is a great place to be, I feel. Anyways, when I get put in an uncomfortable position, I'm going to do something, because it's time for something to be done. And paying yourself first and getting into those uncomfortable positions will make you take that next leap into starting that side hustle, starting that business, getting out there. So I love that one. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love that. You're in an uncomfortable position. I mean, it's I remember the night before an exam in university going, I don't really think I know this stuff, but I'm going to learn it the next 12 hours. Or you've got timelines or deadlines at businesses or presentations, and it's like, holy cow, we need to get this done. And you put a little pressure on yourself, and all of a sudden you're going to find creative ways to meet the deadline or to pay the bills and carry on from there. So great lessons in this book. And again, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you've all heard of it, but just kind of a refresher for everyone to say, this book's really powerful. It's worth a read again. If you've read it years ago, I encourage you to read it again. If you haven't read it, it's just one of the key business books that I think everyone should have a fundamental understanding of. So it's pretty easy read too. It's a story. So I encourage you all that haven't read it to read it. All the young people listening, go read this book. Go read it now, read it often, and start following the lessons. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day.